Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. The title is Humanity's Retaliation Against the Void. And we human beings have inner games that we play with our realm, and there is outer games we play with our realm. When human beings look at life, they look at two dimensions, I find, the human component and the being component. How we are being has to do with the essence and the mystery of life. That means our being, how we are being, is our life. There's a very nice quote from this mystic named Attar. Was it Attar? No, Omar Khayyam. Omar Khayyam says, be happy for this moment. This moment is your life. You know? There's a significance to being alive. And that significance is usually postponed by the ideologically oriented psyche, you know. We accept what we want to be, but not often do we accept what we already are being. That is the biggest thing in mysticism, where the wars against the imperfect self stop. So in the word human being, the being suggests the mystery of life. The human part suggests the mystery of form. That means it's not just being alive that's enough. This life has a form. It has a certain format. We open our eyes as individuals in a system that we are left to interpreting as collective. It's as if the periodic table is a tribe. And when members of this tribe work together, we have different constitutions of phenomena. So, when wondering about humanity's retaliation against the world, we're wondering, what will we do with the mystery of our form and the mystery of our life? The mystery of form, that means if you were to look at life and wonder, what's all this design doing here? Why does existence have a shape? Why does existence even look like anything? So, the being component, I forgot to mention this, the mystery of life, which correlates to how we're being, that has to do with how a subject moves. But the mystery of form, the human form, is how an object moves. That means human beings require to master these two states of mobility. In the wallpaper I have chosen, this is from a recent Japanese show I'm getting into, Evangelion. And what's behind the kid is a giant robot suit that kind of defends the world from messed up creatures or whatever. So that suit is a mobile suit. It's called a mobile suit, you know, a suit where a person is mobile. And I feel that a subject is also as much of a mobile suit as an object. That means when I feel like a mind, right now I'm speaking, I definitely feel like a mind. But if I was just watching, I would feel more like a body. When one gets engaged into the motion, it's like the core of becoming. So mobility as a subject in an object and mobility as an object inside a subject. Humanity's retaliation against the world, against the void, is a suggestion that we want to keep some subjects and some objects alive. If we really didn't, if the species really didn't care about physical existence, there would be no humanity. There would be no need. We would just be like the squirrels and the birds, and we would just, every creature would be doing its own thing in accordance to its biological instructions, biological programming. But there is something more, that we as separate objects in different parts of the world can find ourselves subjectively in the same room. Our mind is here, so we are not separate ad infinitum. In a lot of schools of thought, mystical schools of thought, they are trying to get rid of the mind. Certain yogis were asked, what is the mind? And the yogis like, confusion! The mind is like it's the bridge between the body and the soul. It's like the phone the body uses to pick up the phone calls from the soul, What retaliation means to push back. So it's not just being a nice object, being a nice subject till the end of time, or being a mobile individual object and being a mobile collective subject. It's not just about that, even though that's what I've been talking about mostly in these talks, how from the state of a drop, where before we evaporate, there's the opportunity to recognize the collectivity, the collective rhythms of the mind. These rhythms of the mind, probably maybe even tonight I was thinking about it, that I'm going to give a talk on exactly what I'm doing in these talks, how this relationship with the self as a sort of antenna for the world, as if the self is the mirror for the world and the world is the mirror for the self, and so it's the mystery of two dimensions living in one. That means we may be in one room, but there may be multiple rooms inside this one room. And so the mystery of evolution as attention surpasses just the story. Right now, I have no choice. I can't transmit like a film into a person's mind. I can vocalize, I can try to transcribe my inner film, the film I perceive in my inner realms, but on some level, it is if instantly what I could have said, if what I thought instantly was instantly in the mind of another, there would be no reason to speak. There would literally be no Mr.Within, because Mr.Within wouldn't have no need to speak. It's just that for now we are objects waking up to a collective mind. This collective mind doesn't mean agency. It doesn't mean subjective agency. It doesn't mean there's a person in the clouds waiting to clap for you. This world is intentionally designed by the unknown. The unknown is not God. God cannot be disrespected like that, in the sense of being an unknown man can fathom. At the same time, the idea of God cannot disrespect man when it's God's creation. There's something so fascinating in the stories that human beings are living through. It's as if people are not living inside buildings. They are also living inside ideologies. And unless one can see the geometry of the ideology, there will be no way to retaliate against it, to communicate to it. There's so many moments where I would say the inner realm declares a friend or a foe, but the eyes don't know until the mind lets go of what it has previously done. That means the biggest challenge for me is to wake up and to find a new life in the life that the past left. That means left yesterday kind of raised my consciousness in a certain way, and at the end of the night, I released that consciousness back into the void. But when I woke up this morning, the consciousness re-emerged. The consciousness emerged. When the consciousness emerges, it's because of the energy being moved in a new way that the person feels it's a new day. If the energy was moved in the same way, one can never know. This is the challenge where a statue with a soul can never know it has a soul because it doesn't move. That means if we wondered that humanity had the simple question of how are we moving, what is moving in the eyes of these creatures that we see, and what is moving seems to be an emotional response to the subjective analysis. Like, honestly, that's what we're left with right now in this moment. In front of my eyes, there's objects. These are when I look at reality, when I look at objects, it's as if, like, what can I say? It's as if it's imagination before imagined. It's imagination that you didn't imagine. That's what reality feels like. You know, it feels like it was designed before your eyes had designed. But when I wonder about my inner realms, when I wonder about this mysterious word called imagination, just look at the word imagination. It's like image nation. It's like literally a nation of images where the ego is like the king of that kingdom. Do you know? We may feel like we don't like the ideas of kings and queens, but I am telling you, the psychology of human beings is working that way. Most people, their inner realm function like a monarch in the inner realm. Because they have to, because this body has to move itself. And this was the factor in how back in the day kings were chosen. A king wasn't just, you push someone off their chair, now you get to sit on the chair. It was life building the moment up to that moment. Where there are no kings, there are only kingdoms. To what is inside the kingdom, there is a king. But to the outside, it's just one kingdom. You see? When we look at a person, let's say you're walking on the street and you see someone, it's like that person is a kingdom. They are a human being. But the way they are a human to themselves and how the whole empire of their senses is being, that is different. And I realized something which I will honestly say. Anytime you notice you find your presence, you become hilariously as if a social experimenter of your own psyche. That means everybody is like a social scientist watching how the first human they know move. You know, that means it's like what mysticism gave me was that it made me an anthropologist of my own life. That means an anthropologist. As if, imagine we've gone into like the Amazons and we're living with a very primitive tribe, and it's like, you know, we've been living with that primitive tribe for so long we've forgotten that we're from elsewhere. And you know, I thought about this idea as well of, could it be that the reason there has not been extraterrestrial contact with human life openly is because it's not because human beings are going to be scared of the extraterrestrial. It could be because, playfully saying this, it could be because the extraterrestrial is afraid that it's going to become human. You see, systems have to have tolerance. The more mature and advanced a system is, the more freedom it gives. That means you could be anyone in any system. If the system does not provide freedom, the system is immature. That's it. It's the same with people too. If you see the psychology of the person as a system, sometimes like a person opens the hood of a car and is like, what is this engine here? You know, and so sometimes when you look at human beings and you wonder about the engine that is generating the behavior of the individual, it is multidimensional. And we have been lied to, not by anybody in the world, not by what we have seen, but by sight. That means I love existence, but the unknown experiencer is where the teachings after love are, you know. For some people, love is the highest truth. For others, truth is higher than love. Truth is unconditional. Love is conditional. You need to be something to love something. But in order to be truth, they're like just conceptually fathoming that idea. You cannot do what is true unless you are being true. And strangely, you cannot be true unless the doer feels true. So if I felt some part of my psyche felt I didn't deserve to exist, I wouldn't exist. And I've had moments in my life where I've come close to that line. I've come to the mind where suddenly it was as if they say this saying, they say the mind is a lousy master, but it's a great servant. I've had moments where my mind's become my master and my mind's tried to destroy me. And what I mean by trying to destroy me is that the mind is like a child. And if this child goes in the driver's seat, it can destroy the life. Do you know? So it's that moment when I say my mind wanted to destroy me, it was as if like for a second I wasn't in the driver's seat of my own life. It was as if my past was possessing the freedom I had in the present to be my future. And so I will tell you, for me, in this life, I have gone towards passivity. That means I'm I'm kind of like an extroverted hermit. That tops the silliest thing I've said, I think. One of the silliest things I've said in this lifetime. It's like the person's extroverted, but when they're alone. Oh man. I'll be honest, the extroverted hermit laughs at his own tears. You know, that's where that's where mysticism takes you. You start laughing at the past you never were. Oh man. But as much as I can speak about love and try to take the species to the clouds, we have to pilot differently, especially on Earth. The first strategy is that 8 billion human beings have to find a way to discriminate between the inner and outer realms. After a being can discriminate between the inner and outer realms, there has to be a decision of service. And so I chose personally to serve the inner realms. When I was younger, I wanted to chase the outer realms. Honestly, I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to become a soccer player. In my mind, it was like it was an emotionally liberating job. But life takes you from the unexpected, from the expected into the unexpected. That means you may think you're a fool, and you may be accept that you're a fool and keep walking, and suddenly, again, like this metaphor of a cat kitten in a box grabbed from its back and taken out of the box, life will pull you out of who you think you are, because now is the time to be who you are. You see, we harbor potential of intelligent rhythms, and that is the position of man. That we are not here to just express, but we are here to receive. And so the issue is that people receive ideologically, then try to hope to express experientially. I would say to walk alone is the most important skill. If 8 billion beings can learn to walk alone and truly walk alone, they will realize the value of a collective. You know, there's this strange idea that if no human being was on this earth, we would be the last human being on earth. You know, and when you think about the solitude, you see right now people may not go walking towards civilization. You know, they may be walking away from civilization, but it is a rare opportunity. It is an opportunity that surpasses any emotion, any ideology. It is an event. That means it's as if like when someone pays for like an EDM concert, it's like you've paid for the event. You're at the venue. You're in the middle of the dance and the DJ's already playing the music, you know? And so it's as if we have opened our eyes and the laws of nature are like the DJ. It's like, DJ, spin that shit. And the whole universe started spinning. There is a very profound quote by Lao Tzu where he says music in the soul can be heard by the universe. I don't know if it's Confucius or Lao Tzu, one of these guys. Music in the soul can be heard by the whole universe. Because the soul is the whole universe. It has no other option. That means if we are being among all. If we are being among all, there is a presence to how we are being all. The raindrop on the edge of the leaf looked at the clouds and said, "Universe, God, I'm falling. What do I do? Is this it?" And all the other leaves that were at the, let's say, other edge of the leaf, they were like, "You're leaving this world, man. You're going." Do you know? And some people were like, "There's nothing after this leaf falls from this drop of water falls from the leaf." And some people are like, "Trust yourself, there's going to be something after." And so this was, you can say, Socrates was close into this vision where he says, Socrates was sentenced to pass away from this world. He said, I will either go to a place where there is no Socrates, or I will go to a place where all the questions I've been fathoming in this life will be answered. The raindrop falls, and this is where whatever sort of cultivation of experiencing the unknown you have had in the life comes to be tested. And as the being, as the known drop on the known leaf, fearing its own evaporation, falls down, it will from an horizontal life story suddenly vertically drop. It's as if we don't realize language is like walking on clouds, but truth is suddenly vertically you fell from those clouds and you went towards the clarity. And so the drop falls, and on its way, even in the void, even that human drop fell into the void. Suddenly the human drop falls, that drop of rain falls from the leaf into a river. And so from a horizontal level of individualism, vertically we fall into another horizontal level of riverism. That's the only strategy. We either evaporate as drops, or the rivers of humanity retaliate against the void. Either we care for humanity's potential, or we judge what we have seen from the humans so far. And you know, it's one of those things, who can tell you how to walk? Who? Who on this planet, in this existence, aside from your mind that is generating itself, who can tell you how to walk? And it's the same with the mind. That means there is only one advice that can be given about intelligence. Open the gift of eons. In the inner realms, it's a totally different way of function. Let me tell you what it's like. You know how, for example, I see it with the streaming software, or it's in programs like Photoshop. For example, for the live streaming software, a person can make different scenes and then move between these different scenes, overlay. That means, imagine your psychology is like a bunch of pieces of paper. In one piece of paper, you've written a story about a great self. In another piece of paper, you've written a story about a weak self. In another piece of paper, you've written 3D printer paper, imagine. You've written, for example, different stories of yourself. These stories are piled up. Your mind is like a stack of piled up papers. Now you, as a human being, once you discover the nature of your inner realms, once you realize the emptiness of the piece of paper and how there's different pieces of paper, there's even emptiness of different dimensions. Believe it or not, we may never understand this from this room, but there is such a thing called as collective emptiness. Usually for the individual human being, emptiness is emptiness. Emptiness doesn't have individualism or collectivism, but I'm telling you, there is collective emptiness beyond these eyes. And so if the species harbors any potential to even be beyond these eyes, the mystery stands. That's the whole thing. Nobody knows how we are being a body that knows. So here's the thing. Right now, life is peaceful. There's no need for too much even analysis. But I will tell you, the inner realms grant us the ability to project ourselves into the future. So I may look at 2020 and be like, oh, things are nice. There's trees around, a nice sky. But suddenly, if in my inner realms, just the very spot I am, I just visualize 200 years, 400 years, as if I am inside a time travel machine. Through my inner realms, I could look at this simple sky in the year 2222. In the inner realms, you can see the skies be filled with war, not just the earth. In the outer realms, it's only for war on the surface. There's air warfare, but I mean it's oriented by the value of things in the surface. Can you imagine if aliens were fighting over space? One alien species was like, no, this is our space. You know, another alien species was like, no, that's our space. But there is so much of it around. For me, when nations are at war, it's as if two people punching air. You know, two people with blindfolds in a room, in a room punching, or in a dark room, two people just punching, having no clue what's there, but just, it's a force. It's just about wielding, not power, wielding your eyes clearly. That is really it. We are all pilots of our own attention's evolution. 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. This has become my mantra. I say it every day. A human being can love the world but not realize that they are part of the world. That means it's impossible to love the world when you are the world. You can say love can be an illusion if you're loving something, but if you are love, that means imagine the person suddenly notice that it's not a conditional thing. I love this, I love that. What is this? It's like we're cherry picking our abstract emotion for an abstract interpretation of an object. You know, we can say, and there is the object, and the subject is like a thought of the object, but we can say an emotion is a thought of a thought. Let me go back to the inner realms and outer realms, and how after we have discriminated between them, we would be positioned into two dimensions at once, kind of like how the person has a left eye and a right eye, and both eyes see the same view. We will notice that moving subjects are generating the sense of I, in quotations, and also moving objects. So the study of how objects move in the wilderness of the void, and how subjects move in the wilderness of the void is pretty much it, right? So you can say what National Geographic photographers were doing for nature, now we need to, psychologists and philosophers and mystics need to, in some sense, gather to create documentaries on the inner realms. To document the inner realms, that is the next great task. Like, you can totally see it's necessary. We want to know what's going on in front of our eyes, but we also want to know what's going on behind our eyes, because what's going on behind our eyes suggests how we move in what's in front of our eyes. And any being that finds an allegiance with the inner realms and the outer realms, there is an experience of peace. And so you can say the greatest weapon of a multidimensional being is the peace of all its dimensions. So we have to ask a question, I guess two questions here. What is the best thing that an object can do? And what is the best thing that a subject can do? Because we have rendered the world of objects as empty and meaningless, like a human being can have a purpose in this life, but like an object cannot have a purpose to itself. We are like an object that can conceive purpose, but you know, the inanimate, like a rock at the bottom of a pond, can't conceive purpose. There's no mind there. There's no potential for even fathoming purpose. You know, for me, since childhood, the way my life moved, I felt like a mystic, to be honest, from the beginning. Like that word was kind of like a looking into a mirror for me. But I got offended by something that was present in mysticism. And it was this notion that this universal activity is like, we look at it now from 2020 and we're like, it's 4.5 billion years old in the making. 4.5 billion years in the making, this human film. And 250,000 years we've had the capacity to use inner technologies like language and to make them external, like writing and various forms of medium coming about. So it's fairly recent that we are speaking creatures compared to how vast and how old the universe is being deemed. So this means that in the mystical view of renunciation, what's the term? The renunciation of the outer realms as a path to clarity was an error. It was the ego still. If we were free, there would be nothing wrong with what we're seeing in front of our eyes. When we're not free, everything feels wrong. You can say a lack of freedom in a micro dimension of the human being can make them feel the whole macro dimension isn't free. There's the story of these kids, these grandkids, and their grandfather's sleeping, and they put a smelly piece of cheese or a tiny piece of cheese under on the grandfather's mustache while he's sleeping, and the grandfather wakes up and the kids are acting like angels, and the grandfather's like, okay, this is weird, what's wrong with these kids? Then the smell hits him and he's like, oh my god, this room smells. He leaves and goes to another room and he's like, oh my god, this room smells too. He goes to another room, he goes to the kitchen, it smells. It's like every room of the house, every room of his reality smelled, right? And then he suddenly goes to the front door and opens the front door, and it's like, finally fresh air. Goes out and suddenly sees there's a smell there too. And he's like, no way, the whole world stinks. So one tiny piece of cheese under that person's mustache made them feel the world stinks, right? So it could be mismanagement of an interior system has led to us feeling the outer system is hopeless or there's nothing about it, right? We have to prepare the species for multidimensional emergence, which means universal archetypes. A universal archetype is not just an object held in a certain subjective way. Right now in schools, it's hilarious. Teachers are giving boring lectures and shouting at the student to pay attention. It's like force-feeding knowledge, But in the future, it's going to be totally different, where knowledge, the teacher's going to come to class and it's going to be like, hey students, I'm just going to write down the names of the things you guys got to Google for this course. You know? But then the teacher's going to sit down and going to be like, okay, students, you're each a unique DNA. What do you see that the world has not yet? And then the child has motivation to know. You see, if the greater questions of the world are not seen, the person will remain in a small answer for their whole life. If health is balance, I would say this balance is between the known and the unknown, and this balance is between silence and the movement of sound. So life is happening between, again, the known and the unknown, the silence and noise, stillness and movement, simplicity and complexity, light and darkness. Life is a duality. And as long as you're in dualism, you cannot be non-dual. That means there's no point of being truly feeling non-duality when we have a biological body. I would say true Advaita is bodiless. So as long as a human being has a body, it's like, why are you holding this pen in your hand? You know, why is your, let's say that for all those viewers right now who feel they're eternal beings, why is your eternity holding this sort of temporalness? Forget the thing that we're temporary, that's very common sense, we all know that. But it's wondering, well, how is the temporary moving and what is inspiring them? The unknown is the greatest teacher. The unknown is the closest word to truth on this planet. Humanity just needs to do what the bees are doing, what the ants are doing. Like, it's so ridiculous that insect life on that level of life forms, they have figured out what they should do. We still haven't figured it out. We are like a bunch of bees. Instead of building the hive, each bee is making its own hive and thinking that this system is the best kind of system we know. These bees are worshipping themselves. We should become bees that not even worship, you know, because worship tends to lead to warships, you know. And prophets have become prophets today. I would say there is prophets today, but it's spelled differently. This world is a massive existential event. You are a participant, and the soul cannot hide from the moment. Even though the person can be anywhere, in any location on this planet, no creature can hide from the universal activity. It's as if we are a thought in the mind of higher dimensions, and this is a requirement that we position ourselves. You know, that means the more important than the person feeling like they are free is a freedom that is unconditional. So think of it this way, that once a person in the inner realms reaches a conclusion about an outer realms, that they are separate, but at the same time they're being witnessed from the same unknown moment, that unknown becomes the divinity for everything that is a relationship of dots connected of the content of what is in the content of your moment. That means right now, imagine every human being is a sphere, and inside this giant glass sphere there is different pictures, you know, or I would say different events. I called it eventum in one talk. It's filled with eventums, you know, and each eventum is made up of an eventron, you know, and positively charged eventron. That means we are like a coagulation, a mixing of different events of our own life. Can you imagine the humanity gets together, like works efficiently collectively, and we build an advanced civilization, then extraterrestrials land and they're like, yo, this is impressive, how do you guys do it, you know? And we'd be like, we got bored of this endless hope, no hope. We got bored of our own anguish. We got bored of our own artificial continuous utopic dreams. It's like after some point it's the practical, and on a practical level it comes to the geometry of the moment. It's like the modern philosopher at the middle of the night woke up and was like, whoa, 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 why is energy doing all this? Why is energy energy? Pretty much what human beings, I feel, in the year 2020 need to do is to plant the seeds and create and design the backup systems for the evolutionary phases that the collective will go through. There's a geometrical phase we will go through, then there will be a cyberspace evolution. So we are, and let me tell you what the era is after cyberspace. This is really where I felt this was the time I should have been born. It's the Mecca, MECHA, the Mecca era. It's where man and machine will experience the best friends phase. Right now, man doesn't really know technology, doesn't know its true potential, right? As if it's like a beast we haven't befriended, you know? Or it's like a dog where the pet owner hasn't communicated to at all, you know? But in the future, how the dog is like man's best friend, machine is gonna become man's best friend. Machine is going to, like dogs, we don't realize it, but like people who have pets are literally creating the potential, like literally pioneering the type of relationship that man will have with technology, with advanced technology. So right now, our attention is more focused on the outer realms. Human beings are wondering, should we keep it natural? Should we go technological? What's going on here, right? So in the outer realms, there has to be a choice. I feel it will come to preference. That means we don't have to stop technology. We just have to make sure we preserve nature. That means, let's say one day the species decided to all go into cyberspace. We were all like, enough with biological human living, where things are happening slow. Let's all go into cyberspace. Then people saw, oh my God, we're using the resources of Earth to just stay into these pods that keep our bodies immortal. And in cyberspace, we live endless lives in the outer realm. Excuse me, there was an interruption. What I can say is that free will is a controller. And if this controller doesn't realize the potential of the collective and acts individual, it will feel lost in its own home. We have experienced individual glorification on an inner and outer realm way. It's in the human, you can say, matrix, in the human abyss of thought. Now, what is left is experiencing the glory of a collective humanity. That means so many stories of failures and mistakes and errors and cruelty and warfare. But the story of how we woke up from the simulation of what we held, what the past held, is impossible. What is energy going to do next? We are a self in a world, and we can either work on the self or we can work on the world. In libraries, you see, for example, a section, not libraries, bookstores. You see a section where it's called self-help, literally, self-development. But I wonder, when is there going to be a section in bookstores where it's going to be world development? Because our self eventually comes to how the world is being. You could be the happiest person, but if the world is sad, that's like a sad kind of happiness. You know, that happiness is a kind of a little bit sad. But the idea is that we update the whole room, then we relax. So for me, it's as if, like, instead of people, right now it's like the way the system is designed is that people, they are earning their life through systems in society that have their own agendas, you know. But it's gonna be imagine an advanced humanity where every person, that whatever work they were doing, it wasn't it wasn't a company paying them. It was an advanced civilization. You see what I'm saying? We're literally like 8 billion small ships on boats on the planet, and somebody's like, yo, why haven't we used all these small boats to build a giant ship? imagine like 200 years from now, a child is gonna look at a child is gonna be born, and they're gonna look at their parents and be like, why am I here? You know, it's like, why are we alive? You know, and the parent of that future humanity is going to be like, that's the point. You're gonna go figure out while advancing civilization and efficient system. You know, it's hilarious, but it takes a lifetime to know the value of the lifetime. You can never just snapshot from the middle of the roller coaster ride what the whole roller coaster ride means to you, you know. If human beings just practice the observation of how dimensions are come and go and are added to the moment and taken away, that is enough to learn how experience moves. Because what a person can really do is that in every moment the mind is a reinvention. As the mind being a reinvention, it's like the mind is rebuilding the world as it changes itself. That means, let's say a person is sitting in an uncomfortable place, and the mind's like, I don't like this, I want to sit in a comfortable place. The mind creates the reason, the inputs, the effort behind why the reason is even there. And there's a clue in this story from, what was the story called? The Tower of Babylon, the Tower of Babel, where all of humanity was united under one universal language. And they started building a tower to reach the level of the gods. That means we first found one common universal language, then we started building towards the unknown, the level of the gods. And now what the story of the Tower of Babylon, what happens is the gods are like, yo, what's happening there? You know, the gods are like, yo, we can't allow this. And the gods, what they do is they make human beings speak different languages. When human beings can't communicate to each other, they can't continue to build this advanced tower to the level of the gods. And so what this means is we just need to find a universal language that cannot be broken. That means it doesn't matter what language in the world you speak, you have access to this universal view. Because what is language? Symbols for images. I would say we have built a successful civilization for bodies in a sense where, to some degree, you know, vast amounts of, think of it this way, all human beings started from poverty. Everybody's ancestors, the caveman, started from poverty, you know. Then it was efforts from its own inner realms that pulled it outside. So the idea is that we all start from a zero. When it comes to like a child being born and having no clue what's happening there. So but we have not built an efficient civilization for minds. Pretty much that's what I'm trying to get to. That means we found a way to preserve the dimension of how we're an object, but now we have not built a proper civilization for minds. Why? Because the mind, as if, think of it this way, in Vedic thought, they have this idea that there is the Atman, the individual soul, then the Parabrahman, the collective soul, right? The soul of the collective. So we imagine have two kinds of mind. We have an individual mind and we have a collective mind. We have built a civilization that satisfies the pleasures of the individual mind, but it is actually losing out and missing out on the advancements of the collective mind. That means if we wanted to find some sort of formula for an advancement of civilization, it would be first the dimension of the individual power source. So it's like a civilization is made of individuals. So I would say right now we look at the human being and let's entertain the archaic model of the body, mind, soul. The body being a known object, the mind being a known subject, and the soul being just pure unknown. Doesn't matter if you're thought or if you're subject or an object, it's just unknown. But let's just keep it also in the view of just body, mind, soul, whatever those words mean to you. So we would use this structure of like, okay, this is what the individual is, this is like what the chess piece is, right? And the chessboard is, of course, every person's eyes interprets the chessboard differently, but we would first try to serve the known, think of adding what's the proper axis? Okay, there we go. So imagine this is the filter where we're wondering about, we're looking at a human being and we're like, okay, the human being has a body, has a mind, and let's say is a soul or whatever. You know, is a mind and is watching as a soul or whatever. But anyways, so for the body, we have individual, like literally we have an individual body, right? And then there's this individual, the bee can work with the beehive. We have the collective. Okay, so there's an individual a view on the body, and there's also a collective view on how this body moves with other bodies as a bigger body. Now we have for the mind an individual and a collective too, and then for the soul, this would be really unknown, but I would say we can fathom an individual and collective. So what it would mean, any civilization, human civilization evolves when we have built a civilization that serves individual bodies. We have built a civilization that serves collective bodies. We have built a civilization that serves individual minds. We have built a civilization that serves collective minds. We have built a civilization that serves individual souls. And we have built a civilization that is the service of the collective soul. So that's the ability of adding dimensions rather than fighting the ignorance of the past through duality, you know. This may be a strange metaphor, but oneness is like the younger sibling. Duality is like older than that sibling, is an older sibling. Infinity is an older sibling than, what do you call it? Than duality. And the void is the oldest sibling. This is why I feel that when a person, the inner, from the eyes of the being function through a non-dualistic oneness, their teachings automatically become dual. So so the younger brother learns from the older brother. Duality, to a being that lives in duality, and has the audacity to do so, and not to escape it into a nullified inner heaven only. It's like what a being can't do in one dimension, a being in two dimensions can. What a being can't do in two dimensions, a being in multiple dimensions can. And what a being in multiple dimensions can't do, the void could always happen. We have to prepare now for the post-human era. That means people may have pushed ideas from the ancient mystics aside in regards to spirituality. But I will tell you, they're going to all archaically revive the moment cyberspace brings forth multiple body. That means right now we have one biological body and we fathom like, yo, I got one mind too. You know, I got my mind, others have their mind, so I got one mind. So we have this kind of view now in society. But imagine in the future, you're going to have one mind and you're going to have one biological body and you're going to have, imagine, seven other robotic bodies. That means you could be sitting in an office in the middle of the day, and you have simultaneously your one mind is perceiving like 7 androids just going in different parts of the world and they're still connected to your mind. That means you're functioning all of them. It's that they're put on auto cruise the way they're living, So, multiple, when the moment when we realize there can be more than one body, mathematics kind of forces metaphysical stories to be rendered towards the geometrical, towards geometry. Let me tell you, mathematics we feel geometry right now is a branch of mathematics. I'm saying geometry should be its own branch. It should have nothing to do with mathematics, because everything in this realm has geometry, and if we avoid the geometry of all the branches of knowledge that are out there, it's as if like it's a shame. There's two ways of knowing, really. How your being is a type of knowing on its own, and when a being moves, it's feedback upon how you're being. We don't have to think about our heart. Our heart just beats. A lot of our body inside our skin, or like the systems of the biology, are functioning on their own. So we're thinking, we don't have to think about the body, it just happens. Then we have to ask the question, could it be that in the future it's going to become automated? That means we don't have to think about living anymore, but our attention is multidimensionally maneuvering through various contexts. So we have right now culture in 2020, we're getting close to the AI phase, right? Like fear of AI, whatnot. But I'll tell you, in the future, it's going to be cyberpunk. That means it's going to cyberpunk is a suggestion that cyberspace has been accepted by the cultural program. Right now, our cultural program is like, oh my God, are robots going to become our overlords? You know, we're like freaking out about that. But in the field, you can see so far ahead that eventually you can see man is going to all. It's like what they say. It's like what was your enemy. It's like yesterday's enemy becomes tomorrow's friend. That means it's like it's like how two mindsets collided in a different moment in the space-time continuum. The two mindsets can totally be something different, you know? And this music is too to be in the world but not of it. That's pretty much cyberspace. I wish somehow I could tell 8 billion human beings. That in this world, the way the mind and body relationship emerge, realistically, no one can ever know your mind. No one. That means it's kind of strange, but deep down it's as if there is a strange, I wouldn't say strange, I would say a beautiful lament, where these talks are kind of like how there is something within me, and these are my eyes pretty much. But the eyes of my awareness, my whole awareness. That means all that I see as an object and all that I see as a subject, and that which stands as the presence, unnumbered, so the inner realm landscape, and outer. Men are not per se, human beings are not per se here to be gods. We're not here for our free will to move towards world domination. Really what it is the more multidimensionally mature we become, the more we begin not wanting to go to heaven or hell or stay in earth, that kind of mindset. We will realize that these are stations. and that the whole cosmos to the multidimensional being is a giant airport, and the concept of piloting is not just limited in the outer realms. That means the world salutes the pilot, but the attention that goes within cannot be saluted, because it is the highest ideal. That some things in life, it is not about managing the risk, it is just that you risk, and in that risk there is a faith, and that faith has no purpose, no, I shouldn't say no purpose, has no reason to be there, but it is there, and that is the entrance into the divine. Where for the first time the being looks at the sky and realizes the body was always a mirror. I would say this is I can even declare it as a technique. It's as if our biological existence is reflecting an unknown subjective experiencer. This unknown subjective experiencer means there is no life and death. It's just like what is seeing through the body. Let me tell you what happened to the idea of soul in society. The idea of the soul was orphaned. And this idea, as it was orphaned and put aside, I would say the only house in the block, in the neighborhood that accepted this orphan, I would say the idea of the soul is the idea of the orphan kicked out of the orphanage kind of situation, I would even say. And so the only domain of, I would say, that has kept the idea of the soul, the only a branch of knowledge, I would say, that has accepted it was literature, poetry. Poetry and literature is preserved. They accepted the idea of the soul, and they were like, one day you're gonna go back into the society. So it's again the archaic revival, or you can say an oscillation between the void and the infinite, where between the void and the infinite, we're also between the singular and the dual. Even though we start off as human beings in a human civilization, an advanced civilization will have such freedom and would have faith in the citizen, you know? That's what we don't see, because it's as if like the civilization has given up on people before people have given up on the civilization. And that needs to change, and its change is not intense. It's just that we have to notice the hourglass. Because I am temporary, there is something to do. Honestly, when you think about it, an eternal being has no motivation. What motivation do the eternal have? What fear do the eternal have? What reason for a psychology does an eternal being have to even have? It's as if eternity is a quality of being, and when one is being, there's nothing they can do. You know, that's the power of nature. It surpasses human beings. When a person goes and sits in nature, I would advise people to do this just for 10 minutes throughout the day. Just go and sit in nature. And the idea is not to glorify nature, not to go hug trees. It's the idea is to actually be with the nature of your universal self. There's no greater honor. That means every human being has to have one moment where they forget everything and just touch the grass and high-five the earth. The void is inevitable. In one of my science fiction stories, I wrote a quote, and the quote was, all men will enter the void. Mankind will enter the void. I think it was like this: mankind will enter the void, but humanity's globe shall never perish. Sorry, it's like all humans must enter the void. All must enter the void, but humanity's globe shall never perish. There was something like that. There was something about, while being temporary as a species doing something, that it's as if we know we're on a sinking ship, but while we're on the sinking ship, we build a plane, an airplane on the, you know what I mean? Okay. The outer realms are an invention zone. That means the outer realms is the perfect place to train uh, efforts from within going without. That means really only in this life we can really experience raw creativity. I would say in other states of mind there is no specificity to the doer to do something. We retaliate against the void by first discovering that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That means all human beings are in the challenge, are in a confrontation and battle. Human beings are in a battle with the unknown. That means that's the enemy of our enemy that is our friend, you know? It's as if an alien civilization attacked us, we would all human beings would unite. Similarly, the unknown that is everywhere permeating through everything is like the one thing we have to retaliate against. And so we have feared the unknown, but now I feel the species is realizing this is really the core of mysticism. We have to love the unknown. It's strange, but it's possible. The only way it's possible is when you are it, you know? It's like the person loves the universe because they love themselves, and because they're a part of the universe, they can't be inseparable from the whole of it. You know, our species, our civilization should be so advanced, so inconceivably advanced, that extraterrestrials from imagine other star systems in the future are coming and they're like, they're taking notes of how well we advanced civilized. Anyways, what else can be said? Collective attention's journey, yeah. Okay, I gotta get into this. So let's say an individual person is like, what am I doing here in the cosmos? The answer is you're an explorer, go explore. When it comes when it comes to when it comes to a collective being, like imagine, not, I wouldn't say God, but I would say like a collective being, okay? Like imagine a giant space, a cloud that was being a bunch of peoples at the same time. You know, like for example, like I can tell you all cults or groups are collective beings in a way. You know, groups with the same ideologies, like that ideology is living through all those human beings. A collective being has no individual driven purpose. That means this is where an individual being's strategy is to quickly discover the collective and function then through a free will. That means first get to know the collective, then be a collective being. You know, this is where like yogic practices aim towards. Samadhi is pretty much that. You know, the eyes will have fear as long as they're in the body. You know, but the eyes of the mind are the eyes of the fearless. And that fearlessness only comes from an experiential knowing that matter can break in space, but space can never break to matter. So pretty much we got to realize ourselves as space before we die so we don't repeat. So fearlessly we must now fathom of intelligence and space being the same. I would say the soul, if I could give it a verb, it can roar. And what is the roar of the soul? The roar of the soul begins from within. And it begins from first the mind getting angry at the body. But then the mind realizing it is seeing what it wants through the body. Then the mind gets angry at itself, and then the mind realizes it was never the mind and the anger was from somewhere deeper. And then when the eyes of the deeper is looking, then the roar of the soul to the mind is just like a silent scolding, you know? Or I wouldn't say a silent scolding. It's as if like when the soul enters the room, when the soul shows its presence, the mind is like a soldier, like mind and body like a soldier, like are instantly in the salute pose. They salute the soul, and then the soul, its roar is like at ease, and then the body and the mind suddenly are freed from each other. The presence of the unknown surpasses all knowledge. Knowledge is just like what a mind wears before it enters the void. So we must build an efficient civilization for bodies, we must build an efficient civilization for our minds, and we must build an efficient civilization for our souls, which is pretty much the glow in the artist's eyes as the inner realms are landed onto the canvas. That means we want to be intelligent, but we also want to live intelligently. So if we want to live intelligently, we have to build an intelligent civilization that's more intelligent than us. You know, that means that would be a civilization where man could only make mistakes to himself. There would be no mistakes outside, you know. So if we can make the outer realms more efficient than the inner realms. Right now it's the other way. People, our minds in our inner realms, the person's like, I could see the potential of the world being so much better. Why is it still so fucked up? You know, so like so it's that point where the outer realms is not updated as much as the inner realms. And at the same time, the inner realms have not even started preparing for the technological, how in the future is going to get swallowed by a box. By a mechanical box. So the ideal has to be we are creating our past based on how we're walking into our future. Imagine that reality was imagined. And we still don't know who the Imagineer is. We have engineers and we have Imagineers. Inner realm engineers, you know. Imagine like the Three Musketeers, the three Imagineers, okay? And they're like, one reality for all imagination and all imagination for one reality, you know? Or no, sorry, I said that wrong. I'll say it like this. It's like reality for one reality for all imagination and one imagination for all reality, you know? For all realities. Can you imagine like the child of the person the child goes to the parent and it's like, who am I? And the parent's like, I have no clue. It's like nobody has a clue. Nobody knows your eyes. You know, it's your piloting zone. Without the concept of space, we won't have the concept of matter. Without the concept of matter moving, we won't have the concept of time. So in stillness is where the soul is residing. The soul is hiding in the silence of the universal being. But when the soul steps out of silence, it becomes divinity walking. And so we are invisible winds, pulling, commanding the elemental realm to assist. It's as if we have recruited the periodic table to craft a narrative of continuity in time. And in the middle of this, we are waking up to how there was no dream and there was no awakening. Drop the act, be free already. For sacrifice is not the ego's only route. You know, you can recruit, you can immortalize the ego by rendering its energetic value. It's as if the person's ego, okay, this is just a manner of speech, of course. Excuse me. The music is out of control in this talk, you know. wielding attention, the space leading to matter, the matter moving leading to the story of the creature, a silence and stillness where space and matter are like dualisms that are being witnessed from the same position. After points being truth, lines become truths, and planes become truths. So just like how we can zoom in on the atom and see subatomic particles, we can zoom in on any story and endlessly see smaller particles in it. It's like never ending. It's as if they're like, why was there so much science to teach? Because the universe is just that big. That means endlessly. It's an endless process of, it's like an endless language game, you know? So either we are playing a language game or we are actually experientially there already. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. This was an interesting episode. It also inspired me to write a new script called Philosophers of Parallel Universe Tetra 5. Anyways, thanks for listening. Blessings.